It is 7 p.m. Eastern, and this is On the Record at a brand new time, coming to you live from our brand new studio in Washington, D.C. And first tonight, just when you thought you'd heard it all, this is unbelievable.
The extremists,
legislative arsonist,
hostage-taking tactics.
Why don't they get a life? I'll work harder, and I hope my senators will work to their best to maintain these habits of civility and decorum going forward.
The problem is the Senate.
Right-wing extremists.
Tea Party-driven action.
The president's still sitting on the sidelines.
It's time for us to sit down and have a conversation.
The president has taken many steps over the last several years to show his willingness to negotiate. He's done it with Democrats saying he's too eager to negotiate.
we're not going to negotiate under the threat of further harm to our economy and middle-class families.
The president had us all down to the White House last week, only to remind me that he was not going to negotiate.
We're not going to negotiate under the threat of a prolonged shutdown.
The president's refusal to negotiate is hurting our economy and putting our country at risk.
We're not going to negotiate under the threat of economic catastrophe.
He knows what my phone number is. All he has to do is call.
Senate Majority Leader Reid calling for civility in Congress and now hiding behind a hatchet man. Today, Senator Reid's spokesperson issuing a statement blasting House Speaker John Boehner, saying he has a credibility problem and refuses to come to grips with reality. Former Congressman Alan West joins us. Nice to see you, sir.
It's a pleasure, and thanks for having me on your brand new show, 7 o'clock. This is awesome.
It is awesome. Check out the set. It's beautiful, isn't it?
It's great.
It's fun. Anyway, well, it's not so fun what's going on Capitol Hill.
Sure.
And I should add that Speaker Boehner's spokesperson semi-fired back, and he accused the Democrats of fake outrage and refusing to negotiate. But where's all the civility?
Well, the civility is lost because really people are playing politics with the American people and no one is sitting down to try to solve this. Let's go back and think about when Bill Clinton was president and Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House. Guess what happened? They had welfare reform. They had Social Security reform. They cut the growth of government. As a matter of fact, Bill Clinton in his State of the Union address said the era of big government is over. And so he was able to create a surplus.
So what's the difference now? I mean, why aren't we getting a result of some sort now?
I think that you have a president that has really dug his heels in. He's almost intransigent about this. I don't know what he wants his legacy to be, because when I look at the Affordable Care Act, the number one thing with the Affordable Care Act, if it is a law, it should apply to all people, all Americans. There should not be waivers, exemptions. There should not be delays. It should be across the board. So that's my big point of contention. If it's going to stand, it will stand or fall on its own. But if you're focused on that being your legacy, instead of looking at when you came into office, it was $10.67 trillion in debt, and now we're talking about going over $17 trillion. I don't think the president wants his legacy to be that he amassed more debt in his term as 2 terms as president than all previous presidents put together.
Does he lose something if he negotiates that we'll put it off for a year while we sort of tinker with it and try to figure out how to fix any of the problems that might exist? And does he lose?
Well, I don't think it's about him losing.
And does that matter?
It should not matter about him losing. It's about what's best for this country. And when you continue to look at where we're going as far as our debt and as far as our deficit, we got to fix this thing. You can't continue to kick it down the road. So at some point in time, we have to stop borrowing money. Now, every dollar in Washington, D.C. is not equal. We have to prioritize our spending. One of the things that I did, I wrote a letter to Hal Rogers, who is the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. Why don't we have a Tier 1, a Tier 2, and Tier 3 spending levels and these appropriations bills? And we should be passing those things as they come up in priority, instead of waiting until the end of the year and you get this massive omnibus bill that says we're going to fund everything.
That nobody reads.
And nobody reads
Not a single soul.
Now think about this. We just found out that 800,000 federal government employees were classified as non-essential. So what does that say? That it just says that this thing that we call the federal government has grown leaps and bounds out of control.
I first heard your name when you, probably the second or third month you were in Congress, and you, I think, found $30 million of waste or something. Was that how much you found?
Yeah,
and
it
you
was
got
in Department of Defense budget.
Department of Defense budget, and you got everybody to agree with you.
393 to 0.
I think that's about the last time I heard any member of Congress finding million. $30 million is a lot of money. It may not be, in the trillions, but it's a lot of money. Why is there no appetite to dig through and find that money?
I cannot understand it. I cannot explain it. But if you think that every single member of Congress over there just went and said, I'm going to find $15 to $30 million of wasteful spending and programs, what will happen for this federal government? What will happen for our economy? My big fear is that we don't really have a functioning economy. We have an artificial economy. We stop printing money, what's going to happen? If we don't turn around this out of control spending up in Washington, D.C., what's going to happen? If anything should come out of these negotiations, and eventually there need to be negotiations, we really need to have tax policy reform. We need to have regulatory policy reform. We need to have monetary policy reform.
Do the Republicans have any responsibility in this stalemate?
Everyone has responsibility up here.
So how do you get the Republicans to sort of come off their position, or to to do what is? I mean, we've got to get both the Republicans and the Democrats to somehow come off their fixed positions, or maybe not fixed positions, at least talk to each other.
That's the most important thing, and I believe that the Republicans need to do a better job of articulating policy and what it means in the long term for the American people and for hard-working American families out there. I think the Democrats have to get away from this playing politics where they're concerned about, we want to win back the House, we want to make sure we keep the Senate so that the president's last 2 years can be like his first 2 years. They've got to come together and understand what's best for the American people, not what's best for their political party. And if you go back, there was, I spoke up in Delaware last week. George Washington's farewell address talked about the danger of political factions, and that's exactly where we are today.
How do we get them to stop worrying about politics?
Only the American people can do that. The American people have to want honest brokers that come up here and will say the things that they need to hear, not the things that they want to hear, and be willing. And we need to have people that, look, did it hurt losing a congressional race? Yeah. But I can look at myself in the mirror and say that I never lied to my constituents, and I did everything that I possibly could do for the betterment of their lives.
I must admit I'm appalled at Senator Harry Reid, who has come out swinging and said some really nasty things, calling the Tea Party people or the other side, more so I think than the Republicans have ever done. I mean, he's really come out.
Strapping bombs on the chest, arsonists,
yeah, and then he said he was going to be civil, and then his spokesperson comes out tomorrow and today, and his spokesperson then blasts Speaker Boehner, saying it's a credibility problem, and they refuse to come to grips with the reality. And he is an extension of the Senate Majority Leader. And I mean, if he worked for me, he wouldn't work for me tonight. Because I mean, he speaks on behalf of the Senate Majority Leader. If the Senate Majority Leader says he's going to be civil, well, then so is his staff.
That's true, and that's just the same as your public affairs officer. If you're a commander in the military, that person is going out and speaking on your behalf.
Why doesn't that happen?
This is a different beast up here. I do not understand why Washington, D.C. is not concerned about working together for the betterment of the American people. And like I said, if Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich could do it and created a surplus, reform welfare, reform Social Security, then why can't we do it today?
Good question. Anyway, Congressman, thank you. Always nice to see you, sir.
Thank you.